So for today's recipe, we're actually going to change it up a little bit. Up until now, I've been doing Portuguese styled recipes or Portuguese inspired recipes, but today we're going to do something a little bit more Italian. My husband's family is from northern Italy, so I do try to make a lot of Italian dishes. Today we're going to do mushroom risotto, and I'm going to add pancetta to it. If you don't have pancetta, pancetta is basically Italian bacon. If you don't have it, you can use just regular bacon as long as it's nice and smoked. You can use about 5 or 6 pieces of bacon. And of course there's Parmesan cheese. Our nice arborio rice is what we're going to use. It's a short grain rice, which is perfect for this dish. And of course our mushrooms and our wine and everything else. So if you're ready, why don't you come along with me and we'll do it together. So for this recipe, you're going to need some, of course, arborio rice, some pancetta or bacon, butter, onions, mushrooms, white wine, olive oil if necessary. You might not need some, but if you need it, it's here. And of course, you're going to need vegetable broth. I happen to be using mushroom broth, and it's been simmering for a little while because you need to have it warm. You need to add it into the rice gradually, and it has to be a warm liquid, because if you add cold liquids, it's just going to shock the rice and it's just not going to cook properly. So we have this on a low simmer and we'll add it gradually. Okay, so I'm using a large, a wide pan for this because it's best for the risotto, because it can cook in a bigger surface, because the bigger the surface, the better it will, it'll cook, and it'll get creamy, and it'll just get delicious. You can, if you put it in a tall pot, it crowds it and it won't give it the room that it needs. Okay, so we're just going to let it warm up, and I think it's warm, and we'll add the pancetta. See, the fat is rendering nicely, and it smells so nice. So the pancetta is nice and brown, and it's nicely rendered. So I'm going to transfer it to a plate. We're going to use all this oil to saute the mushrooms. And then we'll bring everything back together. Okay, so there's oil in here, as you can see. If you think you need a little bit more oil, you can always add olive oil. I think this is okay, so I'm just going to add the mushrooms to it. Such a nice sizzle. Like I said before, you can add any kind of mushroom to this. My favorite is the cremini mushrooms, so that's what I'm using. But you can use a combination of shiitake mushrooms, chanterelles, whatever you can find in the grocery store. We'll just let that brown for a bit. So we're going to get them transferred to another plate, and we'll go on to the next step. Smells so good. You can smell the bacon in them as well, which is nice. Okay, that's set aside. So what we're going to do now is, because we don't have any oil, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to put the pancetta back in. And then make sure the oil is nice and hot, and then we'll add our onion. Oh, and it already smells nice. The bacon and the onions. Such a good combination. So the onions are a little translucent, And we're going to get ready to add our rice to it. So the rice has to toast a little bit, so make sure that you stir it, that everything gets coated with the onions and the oil and the bacon fat. And just let it sit for just a few minutes. And then we're going to add our wine. As you can see, there's a little difference in the color of the risotto or the color of the rice. Everything is nice and coated. It smells so nice in here. It smells so good. So we'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll add our wine. You don't want anything burned. You don't really want any color on the onions. You just want flavor. So you can see what I mean by you need to have a nice shallow pan for this, or a wide shallow pan, because you need the rice to lay sort of in a single layer. It's difficult, but it's pretty good here. It's laying pretty flat. So now we add our wine. And I'm just using white wine. You don't need anything special, I've said before. Ooh, that's nice. It's just whatever you like to drink. You don't have to buy specific wine for this or for any kind of cooking. If you like to drink it, you can cook with it. So we'll just let the alcohol evaporate a little bit. Then we'll start adding our broth. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt. As you can see, it's evaporated a bit. We're only going to add salts to flavor the rice, not too much, because we do have the pancetta, and the pancetta is a bit salty. And we're also going to add parmesan cheese as well at the end. So we'll add our first portion of broth, and this is just half a cup. I like to do it in 1 cup increments, but I do add it using a half a cup measure, just so I can keep track. You should need at least 6 cups of broth. So this is a cup and a half of rice, and you'll be using about 6 cups of broth by the time you're done. And we'll just let it absorb. So this is what it looks like after it's absorbed 1 cup. So we're getting ready to add another cup. So I'm going to get ready to grate the Parmesan cheese, but you have to keep an eye on the rice. Don't turn your back on it for too long. It needs to be at a constant, sort of like a constant simmer, and you have to be able to add the broth in as soon as it needs it. Right now it's okay, so I can turn my back for a minute. So this is a wedge of Parmesan cheese, and you can buy it in any grocery store. You can usually find smaller wedges, or you can find it already pre-grated in a bag. I don't recommend you use the kind that's in the can that sits on the shelf instead of in the refrigerator, but I personally prefer to buy the wedges and grate it myself. So here we go. So you're going to need about half a cup. We're not quite there yet, but we have to check on our rice. Another cup of broth. So I want to try it to see how it's coming. And you don't want the risotto to be too cooked through. You want it a little bit chewy. Similar to pasta, you want it all al dente. It's getting there. In a few minutes, we'll add our mushrooms. That's good. The seasoning is good as well. At this point, if you think you need more salt, you can add it in. But don't forget, we're also going to add the Parmesan cheese, and that's salty. So I just added about half a cup of broth, and I'm going to add the mushrooms back in. Stir them up in there so that everything is all nice and combined. I'm going to add another half a cup. Oops. And just let it continue to cook. So we're down to the end. I'm going to add the last bit of broth. So it's a little more than half a cup, which is fine. I'm gonna let that simmer for a little bit. And then we'll add the butter and we'll add our Parmesan cheese. So in total, cooking time is about 20-25 minutes. You have to constantly keep an eye on it. Like I said before, you can't turn your back on it. And you have to stir it constantly because you don't want any of it to stick to the bottom of the pan. You want it to be nice and creamy, just like this is. And you want the rice to be al dente. So at this point, I am going to turn off the fire, or turn off the stove. I'm going to add our butter and add the Parmesan cheese. The butter and the Parmesan cheese together is just going to give it another level of creaminess. And then we'll add our Parmesan cheese. Look at how nice and creamy that is. And it is done. Look at how creamy it is. It's just beautiful and it smells so good. So here is our beautiful plate of mushroom and pancetta risotto. So you can see it's got lots of chunks of mushrooms and pancetta, and it's nice and creamy and it smells so, so good. So we are going to taste it. And we're going to add some more Parmesan cheese to it because you can never have enough. Let's get this guy over here. Oh, it smells so good. And you know, you can eat risotto as a side dish or as a main dish with a salad or another vegetable or whatever you like. But it's very versatile and you can have it lunch, dinner, anytime. And it's even better as leftovers. Not that we have any, but if you have any, you'll enjoy it. This is another favorite. You're gonna like this one even more. It's so creamy. And the rice is just perfect. It's not overdone, it's not underdone, it's just perfect. So So I hope that you'd give this recipe a try. Like I said, it's one of our family's favorites. It's just fantastic. It's one of those simple crowd pleaser recipes. So thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoy this recipe and I hope you try this recipe. And I'd like you to like and subscribe and share with all your friends. Thank you. Have a great day.